We'll wait for a few people to come on. It's pretty early start, but we don't normally start on time, so this is good. But
Look at that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that music. I've got to really change that intro. It's very dramatic
It was very
for
full
the
on, isn't it? It feels like
yeah
when I was
for
in
this time of
London.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sitting in
yeah,
the
cool.
newsroom and they would go around, or even the SEMrush marketing day they did, where I feel like I had the voice in one ear being like, and camera one for opening. It's very dramatic like that.
This is very B grade compared to that kind of thing, but it's still we try and do it
I
semi
love it.
semi good.
Production value, mate.
A tiny bit. But hey guys, thanks for joining us here today. It's Jimmy here from My Online Guy. It's Wednesday, right? So that means we have another interview here to help everyone get through a bit of the hump day. You know, Wednesday is always a tough day to get through at work. So hopefully we can drop a few knowledge bombs and help push that day along for you. So. Look, there are countless interviews and videos out there talking about the nuts and bolts of SEO. Quite frankly, I personally, as an SEO myself, I feel like it's a bit done to death. Every tip and trick imaginable is on either YouTube or in podcasts. So today's interview is going to be a little bit different. We're going to dive into the nuts and bolts of running an actual agency itself, specifically an SEO agency, but just an agency in general. Now, don't run off if this isn't something that you're doing right now, or you don't run an agency, you run a small business, because there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today that are relevant for all businesses. But there's a lot of things here that we do in agencies that can be applicable to other businesses, and we can actually you can take a bit from this. So today we're lucky to have on Harry Sanders. He's with us today. For those who don't know, Harry founded Studio Hawk in 2016. And since then, since that beginning, it's evolved to be one of Australia's largest digital agencies specializing in search engine optimization. Like Studio Hawk's not only one of the top agencies in the country, they've also recently, you guys have recently expanded into London, and I'm really interested to dive into that and how the expansion into another countries gone. And quite frankly, Harry's a top bloke, so it's really going to be a good chance to pick the brains of someone that has been in the trenches for a long time. So Harry, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Studio Hawk, and if you could be any animal, what it would be, notwithstanding a hawk. What is your spirit animal, mate?
Oh man, let's dive into it. Thanks for the killer introduction. Obviously, running Studio Hawk, dedicated SEO agency. Animal, man, barring the hawk. Whenever I get that question in interviews, it's always my go-to. I'm like, gotta go the hawk. What else would I be? Maybe like like a camel or something. Camels are sturdy, reliable. They do what they do best. They're very specialized in what they do. So just making up on the spot, I'd say a camel if I can't be a hawk. That's for sure.
And there's enough bulk there to sustain you. Yeah, that's actually a really good animal to be.
Mm,
Survivability's there. They're built for surviving.
Hundred
That
percent.
explains running an agency a lot. Actually,
Yeah,
that's
it's
the end of the interview, guys.
being a
That's
camel. It's not the lion. It's not the tiger. It's not anything glamorous, but it's the sturdy thing that keeps doing well.
excellent. Now, so tell us a little bit more about yourself, Harry, for those who don't know you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty young. If you're sitting here and watching me, you might be going, "This guy's pretty young to have all this agency stuff." I'm 23, so I'm just gonna get that out of the way. Been doing this since I was 14. I got my first agency job then, and I've been in the SEO space when I was 13 doing affiliate sites. That's how I got into agency. Did a few agencies, decided I didn't love it, and so I started my own called Studio Hawk. 5-6 years ago now, and I've just kind of grown it organically from there each year, trying to champion this growth and keep it going.
Excellent, excellent. Now, guys, obviously there's a lot to unpack here today, so we're going to get straight into it. But as always, guys, you see on the next to us here, there's a little chat box, right? So like, please put your questions in. Like we've seen in the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of knowledge in some of the guests that we're getting in, Harry especially. So get your questions in, just type them into the chat. They'll pop up here. We'll answer them as we go along. So yeah, I'm going to get straight into it. So tell us a little bit more about Studio Hawk specifically, and what does your day look like at Studio Hawk?
Yeah, so Studio Hook, when I started it out, I didn't want to do two things. I didn't want to do lock-in contracts. That was a big thing I really wanted to avoid and something I had bad personal experience with. And then the other thing I really didn't want to do was I didn't want it to be a generalist agency. So I'm just going to try and fix this like thing going on in the background. I didn't want to be a generalist agency. I wanted to be very specialized, right? I wanted to own what we did. And so for me, I was head of search at this old agency. I decided that I didn't love paid so much. And that's not to say paid isn't cool. And reps respect all you paid guys, but I wanted to do SEO because I felt that needed the most love. So that's what I did. We started out just specializing in SEO. You've got this guy that just knew SEO but didn't know how businesses operated or worked or ran. And along that journey, I've had a lot of different people I've spoken to and built out some cool systems. My day-to-day life now looks very different given that we're about 40 people now, with four in London and then the rest in Australia. My day to day now is more strategically overseeing all the campaigns and different strategic initiatives. Like we got a tool called Hawk Vision, which is an internal tool for tracking, measuring, and benchmarking our performance across our campaigns, and understanding what the agency needs. Do we need more SEO talent? Do we need content writers? Do we need to expand our digital PR offering? They're the kind of day-to-day tasks that I look at now, more so than doing the SEO for clients. I've still got a few affiliates that I like to do outside of work, but that's what my life looks like.
So how much of your day would be, mining the farm, checking the Hawk Vision, overseeing clients? Because I suppose that's probably a big thing. Takeaway is like you can't fully step away from this, even if like yourself, you have a management team in place, but like, if you enjoy SEO, it's hard not to just like peek in and just see how things are going.
Oh,
So I can completely
100%.
understand that. But so how much of your day would be the mining the farm, just doing this and then doing the public relations stuff and all the other parts that come with running a larger
Yeah.
agency?
I would say probably 10% of it's just trying to benchmark and measure things. That's more out of personal interest, though. Realistically, I could probably get away with 2 to 3% of my day doing that. But like you said, I'm just fascinated by the SEO world, and I do a lot of speaking, a lot of engagements, a lot of different podcasts on SEO. And I need to be prepared and equipped to answer any questions. If I can take insights and learnings from the campaigns we're running and bring that to different things, that makes me a much better speaker, interviewee, or whatever we might be doing at the time. So I still very much like doing that and being at the forefront of it. But aside from that, yeah, I would say a lot of it is the PR side. A lot of it is the different initiatives like Hawk Academy. What are we doing there? How are we growing that? Do we need to build out any tools that we need to use? It's really another step up to what's preventing us as an agency from becoming bigger. Like the SEO side is like rock solid. Like there's seniors and mids and SEO directors and a general manager all in place overseeing all the nuts and bolts of SEO, making sure we're at the forefront. My job is like a step above that, is like what stuff are we doing or leveraging that nobody else can? Is that something that we can do through the Hawk Vision or through Hawk Academy?
Yeah, oh man, a shout out to Hawk Academy. I keep saying, look, as most SEOs, you do spend a bit on courses and just upskilling, and I keep telling people, bang for buck, it's the best course on the planet right now. Bang for buck. I still think you're grossly undercharging for it, but as a notwithstanding a very specialized part of SEO, but just like taking someone that maybe doesn't know SEO at all to someone that can do it. I think there's not really a better course, and obviously there's going to be more very niche and specific stuff that you would learn post the course. But I think as the sort of go-to like starting point, when I get people asking me where would you go to learn SEO, it's like here, go to Hawk Academy. Like
I
there's nothing
appreciate it,
better.
man.
Yeah, no, and we'll talk a little bit more towards the end about Hawk Academy because I think it's worth mentioning because you've done a great job there. But all right, so tell us a little bit more about the early days of Studio Hawk and obviously how you went from like one or two clients, few clients to sort of where you are now.
Yeah, 100%. So early days of Studio Hawk were pretty grim to start off with. Like, didn't have, when I left agency, I had a lot less than I thought. And I also had an ego to boot. I also thought that I knew how business is done and operated just by being an account manager at an agency. And I had a very harsh wake up call when I got into the real world and realized that being good at SEO didn't make you a good business owner. So I had to learn from the ground up, like I did SEO, all the different things involved in that. So for me, that started with obviously getting clients. Now, I'm not a super extroverted guy. And so I had to figure out a way of differentiating myself, but also getting these clients. So for me, that was going to networking events and just being real and talking to people. And God, it was a pain in the ass, man. I remember those days vividly, rocking up to networking events, talking to people, getting drained constantly. I just go to everything, man. Anything and everything that would let me in, I'd be there. And it took me ages to like just get a couple people to give me a go. But that was like the kind of start. If you look at the starting block, that was like the first client's always the most difficult. Any tips? Man, just keep going at it. There's no secret, when people say like, "Oh, I do this to get your first client." It's really easy for me to go out. Like if you said, "Harry, you got no more studio, or go get a client," it's incredibly easy because I've built up this name and rapport and everything. But you get rid of all that, man, you got nothing. It is literally just another guy trying to get clients. So just keep slogging it out. If you're listening to this, that's resonating with you. Keep slogging it out. It'll happen. And then step 2 of the process is the most important. Get referrals. Uh, Only way to get referrals is make people like you. So you need to do that in 2 ways. Number 1, you need to crush it on the campaign. You need to absolutely crush it. Put in more work than you need to, whatever, so that they appreciate the work you've done. They can see it. You can describe that to them, and they can vividly picture it. Otherwise, it's just fairy dust magic. And then the second part of that is actually having a relationship with them, like talking to them, running them through the report, being able to pick up the phone and call them if something isn't going right. That's the second part to it. So I was very good at that because I knew how to manage accounts, and what that allowed me to do was kind of snowball what we were doing. So you take 2 clients, and then it would spit out 4 on the other end, and then those 4 would turn into 6, then 8, then 10, then 12, then 24, and you get this multiplication effect through your clients. So that was how we really built that out.
It's funny because it feels like sometimes when you talk to other people at agencies, it feels like people feel like SEO or just digital marketing in general is in some kind of like bizarro vacuum world where the general business principles don't apply to it.
Yeah.
So whereas like pounding pavement, honestly, like, we get a huge amount of referrals here, and it's all just pounding pavement and kissing babies, like
Literally.
we went to that trip, over East, and I was saying this to the team. I was like, it's nice to be able to go somewhere and not have clients avoid you and like actually want to catch up for a beer and stuff. And that only comes from, like you said, good comms, and just doing, like make sure I'm very big on the referrals, and I'll straight up hit people up and clients and go, look, dude, do you know anyone? Like I could do with a bit more work. Do you know anyone? And they're like, if you've been doing good work for them, they're happy to find people for you. And they're the best salesmen for what you do, because there's so many charlatans out there that if you get a friend tell you that this guy's good, next thing you're in your home and hose. But
Yeah, correct.
so what are some of the, obviously you've grown, grown exponentially, and you're maintaining that growth. So what have been some of the roadblocks, or hurdles you've had to overcome with the kind of growth that you've had over the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah. I mean, biggest one is staffing. You always hear that, but there's not enough good talent in the world to go around. There's enough clients in the world to go around. That's absolutely true. I mean, there's so many clients that you'll really never really compete with anyone. But there's not enough talent to go around. And so that's certainly a tricky point in a scaling SEO agency, where I don't need an account manager. I don't need a generalist PPC SEO search guy. I need an SEO guy. And so that's really difficult. And getting those first few people on board are incredibly, incredibly difficult. And I certainly made mistakes at the start with who came on board and what we did. However, having said that, it's the most important part of the business as you grow and scale, right? Like getting the right people. And so sometimes that means for us, we had to train people. We would have to take people on that maybe weren't where we hoped they would be, but train them up on our methods, our process, and our systems to get them to where we want them to be and make a serious investment. So it's that business saying that's what is it? I think it's Warren Buffett or one of those kind of guys that says the biggest mistake you can make is not training your staff. And then the typical business owner says, but what if they leave? And then the response is, what if they don't?
Yeah,
And you're
that's
just
it.
left with a bunch of crappy stuff. So I think training, and I think there's two main problems that most agencies face that I think we've done quite well to avoid, given my previous experience, is progression is one of them. Progression in an agency is really tricky to get right, and also training, which kind of ties in together. A lot of people will come to an agency and they will be stuck in their role as an account manager or whatever, and they might be given a new title or whatever, but no one really wants a title. They want, raises, different clients, different recognition within the company. They want to be managing teams and people. Now, if you're stuck with a bunch of juniors and you can't promote those juniors to specialists, even if they have earned it, all those specialists are seniors, you got a problem with progression. You need to have a map and have a road for those people. And as part of that, you need to have some training so that you can standardize what's an SEO specialist need to know, what's a senior specialist need to know. And that way no one can claim, oh, but I'm a senior. They're not. Like when we go to hire people, we get a lot of seniors that apply that we would deem as mid, or even some of them juniors, based on like our training standards. So they're different things that we have hit snags in along the road and now actively work to fix, and have done, I think, a good job on working and revitalizing those things.
So where's some of the mistakes? Because obviously, I think that's you're right. Like there is a lot of work out there, and you go to conferences and you meet people, and 1 in every 10 is actually half decent at SEO.
Mm.
The rest have done a little bit, or which is there's nothing. I think that's the thing is like there's nothing wrong with that either. Because you can learn everything's available to learn how to do SEO. It's not
Yeah,
like it's
correct.
some dark art that's done in guilds and things, right?
Mm.
But what are some of the mistakes you made with hiring? Early days, and even as you've been sort of formalizing this process and getting better at this process.
Yeah, I think early days we were too focused on hiring people with experience and not the attitude. And that bit us in the ass a bit, because these people would come in with egos as well and cause a lot of issues with clients and internally. And so I think we've learned a lot coming out of that and what that looks like. But also, like, you just make bad hires, man. At the time, it might be a good hire, and then later it turns out not to be. The company grows, and not everyone grows with it as well. Like, we've had some great, incredible people that just haven't panned out as SEO specialists. That's life, man. Like, that's just how it is. And sometimes you outlay a lot of money on training them and they don't come through. But it's the same with university if you think of it that way. Like, not every student that enters university leaves with a degree. It's the same with jobs. Not every junior that starts makes it the SEO specialist. Not every SEO specialist makes it to senior. It's all a journey for different people. And so as much as it's hard sometimes to see that happen and deal with. Having said that, we've only lost probably 3 or 4 staff over the six years, which is great. But still, something to look at. But it is one of those things that, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work out, man.
Yeah, and how was that? I remember the first time I had to let someone go here.
Mm.
How did you go with that first time? Going, this isn't right. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, back when I was 17, I reckon I was firing, a person every couple of months back at that company. My boss would come in and be like, someone needs to go. And so I'd have to find out who was going. So I was experienced with the process, and thank God we don't need to fire people that often here. Um, but it's a conversation that you need to have earlier rather than later. There's nothing worse. Like we don't like surprises at Studio Hook. That's just one of our things. We do not like surprises. If there's a surprise in a massive drop in traffic, or whether it's a surprise in someone's performance, don't like them. So they are well aware of performance issues before they're in that room getting terminated. That's apparent through their training checklist, through their performance reviews, through their one-on-one training if things get really bad with their managers, consultants. It's just, yeah, that's the best way you can do it. So they're aware and it's not a surprise to them. And that way they've, got other things, and they kind of know what's coming rather than just being sat down in a room. And otherwise it creates a bunch of angst for everyone at the company as well. If like, oh shit, David just got fired, or whoever just got fired, right?
No one's seen it coming.
No one's seen it coming. Am I getting fired next?
Yeah.
Whereas I think when people know, it's a lot more chill.
So on the flip side, then, so like, let's say I want to get into the industry, I want to become an SEO. What kind of traits do you hire for? Let's say it's juniors, like, because obviously, experienced SEO, it's a different ball game. But like, off the street, I'm 17. I just want a break. I really love SEO. I really love the internet. What kind of character traits do you look for when hiring a junior?
3 things we drill down, and the 3 things we look at when doing an interview is passion, hunger, eagerness. 3 values. You need to demonstrate that you're eager to learn, you're passionate about SEO, and you're hungry to make a difference and get involved in a company. They're the things that we're looking at in each and every person, whether they're a senior or a junior or anything in between. But people have to demonstrate those values. Otherwise, they're not a good fit.
Yep. And I suppose there's lots of ways to do that. I know I was reading I've got the book here, that Delivering Happiness, about Zappos, and Tony Shea saying, like they're testing. It starts they pick them up with a bus, and it starts with the bus driver, how they treat the bus driver. So they interview the bus driver after the fact and said, "Oh, how did that guy treat you?" Little things like they test how the perception of optimism and luck. They give them a handbook and ask them to count a newspaper, and ask them to count the amount of pictures in the book. And then on the first page, in the first picture, it says, "Oh, there's 23 images in this newspaper." So those people that are inherently lucky see the image, read it, and go, "Oh, there's 23 in here." But those people that perceive themselves to be unlucky and not optimistic, they'll go and manually count each photo. There's plenty of ways to those 3 things. There's plenty of ways to work.
I like that. I would 100% be counting those photos. 100%. I could read it and it would say 23 photos. And I'm like, nah, checking that.
That's the 100%. SEO coming out. It's like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
Analytics is saying, oh, better check that.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Don't believe
right.
it.
Okay, so talk us through. I've got here hiring process. So like, talk us through a little bit about the actual hiring, because I think a lot. There's really 2 types of agents, in my opinion. There's the single man freelancer. Arguably, it's not the worst way to go about it. Better margins, freelance, and then you get to a point where you have to hire staff to assist. So obviously, most agencies at some point will be hiring staff, and it's obviously the area that has the biggest effect on the business. So talk a little bit about your hiring process and what you guys do at Studio Hawk.
So the hiring process at Studio Hawk is, I guess it's interesting and not that interesting in a few regards. Like, most of it's pretty standard. We'll do a phone interview to kind of suss them out. So we might get, for perspective, when we did our first round of hires, we got maybe 20 applicants, which is not a high number. And we had to, make a choice out of those. Now we would have 700. Last round we had 770 applicants, man. Like, for a junior SEO position. So like, the company's grown and the perception about it has grown as well. It's the kind of thing that people want to work at now. So obviously we have to screen through that. One joke I always make to the guys that is not true, but I always say we always delete half the resumes just like automatically in Monday, just because we don't want to hire anyone that's unlucky. But in all seriousness, we literally go through all 700 of those to determine who's good. It starts with the cover letter. The resume, honestly, rarely gets looked at for a junior position. Different for like a specialist or a senior, but as a junior, we're looking at your cover letter. If you've got a good personalized cover letter that talks to Studio Hook, we have people that have done up custom blog posts, that have done, have looked at SEO issues on our side, and that's the kind of stuff that makes you stand out. Of 700 people applying, you've got to stand out somehow. So that cover letter is your place to do it. From there, you do a good cover letter, you'll get a phone interview. In the phone interview, we're basically checking you can talk. We don't schedule the phone interview. It is a random call, kind of puts you on the spot. And we just want to see how you think on your feet. We don't ask anything too crazy. We're not asking you to solve like algebra problems, but we are just like kind of getting an understanding. If a client talks to you on the phone, what's that perception going to be like? Do you sound like we're inconveniencing you by calling you right now? Or like, what's the vibe going on there? From there, you go in person. Best place to suss people out is in person, and we start asking you a little bit more heavy questions. A big thing we like to talk about at Studio Hook is hardship and adversity. So we kind of dig quite deep. A lot of the questions that we ask are not really about SEO at all. It's more, I might say, Jimmy, share with me a time that you had to overcome some kind of hardship. And that might be in your personal life or professional life. And we get the most incredible stories of what people have gone through and done to get to this point in their life. And that's really interesting to me. From there, trial day. You come in for a day. It's a paid trial day. I don't believe in unpaid work. So you come in for a paid trial day. You see how you fit with the team. So of 700, we're down to maybe 5 trial days now. And then the best trial day wins. And then we put a knife in the center of the room, and then we say, no, we don't actually do it.
It's Hunger Games. It's like you all scatter in 5 directions, and
exactly.
No, 40
but that's literally it. It's remarkably not much to do with SEO when we're hiring for junior, because we're going to teach you SEO. Yes. Like a lot of it, I say that, but we do also look at, in terms of those interviews, people that have done Hawk Academy, look at their test results and scores. A lot of the universities now use Hawk Academy, so we now pick up students from there and look at their results and kind of do it like that. But it's not to say that you couldn't get the role without doing Hawk Academy, but certainly it speaks to that hunger and eagerness if you do.
It's amazing what people, that's the thing. Like, if you really want a job, you'll do everything you possibly can to make yourself stand out. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Part of my hiring process is on our. I basically tell people in the ad to find out how old my dog is, and throughout the internet, it's an old text in one of the images on the homepage, and if you read the caption of the image, it says, check this photo out to find out how. It's on my LinkedIn profile. It's in the Facebook profile, and it's amazing what people will come up with. I had one lady coming for a traineeship, and she made a whole Adobe XD wireframe about like the dog's age and like her experience. And I was like, well, how do you not at least give that person a try?
100%. Yeah.
When they put the effort in,
Exactly. It's the sniper approach. Like Studio Hook, back in the day, we would just get resumes of, generic stuff. Now you're up against, again, like 600-700 people. So we're going to have people that stand out there. So if you literally just shoot us off your traditional cover letter, traditional resume, I will guarantee you don't have a chance of getting an interview. And that's not being cocky. That's not being an asshole. Like, we want good people. But you are, and this is not just true for studio, but for a lot of different roles, you are up against people that want that job at that company. So if you don't want that job at that company, that's cool. But know that if you really do want the job, you're going to have to put in that work.
Will Warner just chipped in, at the boys. Hey, Will, hope you're
Thanks,
doing
Will.
well, mate. The boys. Now, I want you to go back in time, 6 years ago when it was a handful of clients, right? Obviously, it's a bit of a luxury now. You got the staff, you've got the management in there. It makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I'd imagine your problems are different to what they were early in the piece, but there's a lot of people watching that are just starting out, or they just got 3 or 4 clients, 5 clients, and they're managing that themselves. What were some of the tricks that you did to overcome to balance that to the, because there's that threshold where you get like 10 clients. It's like, actually, I could do with a second person or whatever, but I can't really afford it. So I'm just going to have to do extra. What were some of the tricks you used to sort of manage that, like that sort of threshold between one person and two people?
Yeah, I mean that's always a tricky part. 1 to 2, and then 2 to 5. For me, I mean managing that threshold, it really came down to taking a hit myself. I took a massive salary hit, basically gave my salary to this other person, and went back to the old ramen and noodles. And you're gonna do that a lot through the course of your agency life. I get a lot of people that talk to me about, oh, I want to start an agency, don't have a boss, so I can do this, and I'm gonna get so many recognition in the industry. All those things are lies. You will have 300 bosses. You will get no recognition. Like if you start a business to get recognized, you are literally doing the worst thing you could ever do. So I would say, yeah, to that, it's certainly an interesting way if you were to go down that way. But to get that first staff member, it is. You're gonna take a hit. It's gonna be a sacrifice. It's gonna be unnerving. There's a reason why every business doesn't have staff. It's because it's scary. You now need to manage people, and if I'm being totally honest, some people are really shit managers. You've got to ask yourself objectively, am I a shit manager? And then you've got to find out why, and solve that. If you're hiring people to tell them what to do, or you're hiring people to make them call you boss man, some ego trip that you're having, you are a terrible boss, and you shouldn't be managing people. And you probably need to learn what motivates, what inspires people better.
It's a good point. Like I've said this in an interview previously. Most of my job now is there. Basically, I spend a good chunk of my weeks now going, how can I make sure that I pay the bills this month? It's not like, we got like 6 staff here or something, but it's like, I also go, well, that's our salary. That's our cost to do business. There's a shortfall, or, I need to find $5,000. How am I going to do that? Like it's not, and it's like month in, month out. And I'm sure that doesn't change. The bigger you get, the bill's bigger, like it's still about filling that pipe. And, that's why I alluded to that early in the pieces when I was doing it myself, and I was just doing affiliate stuff myself. I actually I would argue I made more money. But I think people don't realize that it's not something you can just like set on automate and then you go off to a beach in Thailand.
Yeah,
and
100%.
just chill out. And I think
Too many people think that that's the thing, man. Like, I don't know why or where this idea that I'm going to start an agency and go to Thailand came from, but it doesn't. It's not a thing. It's if you start an agency because you want to make the best margin, go to e-commerce, go to another industry. Agency is not a margin machine. You're doing well if you're making 20-25%. Any more than that, then something, it's like it's just one of those things that really is not as glamorous as people look at it and find it to be. But if you're genuinely passionate about it and want to make a difference for the industry and the people, yeah, absolutely start an agency. But if you're like, oh, I'm sick of working for this company and I want to make more money, starting an agency is probably the worst way you can go about doing that. It's going to take you years and years and years. You're going to work harder than you ever have, and you're going to make less money.
It's real talk. Like, guys, if you're watching this, and honestly, it's probably my biggest bugbear with the industry actually, is like people just want to automate especially the customer facing side of this business. That's probably where the most of the time and energy and effort actually goes into. And I spend a lot of my time on the phone to clients or doing screencasts and just talking them off ledgers, talking them through things. There's no, I think that's, guys, like Harry's hit the nail on the head. It's not as glamorous as, everyone, like the public perception of running an agency is different to the actual real life running of an agency, with a little bit of scale, obviously, but running of an agency, like you said, I started by doing affiliate. That's how I got my content marketing and affiliate marketing, was where I learned SEO. And I would argue my life was a lot easier when I was just doing affiliate stuff, because that is a lot more passive than running an agency. But then I also miss the human interaction. You do an affiliate site, you don't talk to people for days.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's there's no, it's literally the grass is always greener. Or the other quote I heard that I really liked the other day is everything's hard. Running an agency is hard. Being a freelancer is hard. Running affiliates is hard. There is no easy path. If you're looking for an easy path, there isn't one, no matter what you do. Doesn't matter what career you go down, you're going to have some struggle, some adversity. So, yeah, but an agency is probably one of the harder paths you can go down, not one of the easier ones.
Yeah, that's right. Everything in life, it's like I get a lot of chippies and we work with a lot of tradies and they're like, oh, it'd be awesome to just sit in an office all day. And I'm like, yeah, compared to what you do, like there's different levels of hard. And,
Yeah.
you're right. Like yeah, there's no, and you would, some people say, oh, doing a course is easy money, but I'm tipping that Hawk Academies, it's, still a fair bit of work.
Yeah, like printing cash, mate.
Yeah,
like spending cash more like, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's that's a key takeaway from today, guys. Is like, it doesn't matter if you got one staff member or none or 40. The problem's still there. Like the problems and the trials and tribulations of running an agency are still there, and it's just the zeros behind it. Probably revenue wise get bigger, but it just amplifies the problems too. I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the bigger the agency gets, the more the problems resolve themselves. Like the more people you have in charge of that and in your corner and doing those things, that's the economy of scale. And the work quality, I mean, holy shit, Jimmy, the work quality between where we are now versus where we were back when I started. I will have people pull up traffic reports from when I started, and I would literally use the term traffic is chugging along at a good rate, and that was your report on traffic for the month. So the quality has dramatically changed and shifted. Can you imagine a junior coming in and putting that in a report? Even a junior, you'd be like, this is crap. This can't go out. And that's the stuff that I was doing. I was 4 years seasoned back then. So it wasn't like I was a new kid on the block either. But, it is to say that, yeah, the quality's gone up dramatically for us. The checking, the Hawk Vision, all those different tools, the training has gone up dramatically. Don't start out and compare yourself to a company like Studio Hawk or, Dentsu Group or whatever company you're aspiring to be like, because they've got a lot more people doing these things. Hawk Academy is powered by 2 different people that are in charge of that development. The agency itself and all the training is powered by 36 people. The finance and all that's powered by 2 people in charge of that. So there's people and processes and teams around everything now. So, I think one of the big things I did when starting out was comparing myself against all these guys and their work quality and realizing how hard it was to shape up. But there's different ways of getting around that, and it's not always coming down to it.
I think that's a fantastic point. You only tipped on it, but like that's, I think a lot of people when they're starting these agencies, they get paralyzed by going, oh, actually, we need to have a Hawk Vision or we need to have like this kind of reporting. Actually, like courses for courses, 6 years ago, your client base, telling them it's taken long, that's probably all they wanted to know as well. Like
correct.
It was horses for courses. Now, obviously, your size of client has changed.
If I thought Officeworks things were chugging along, that'd be the end. That's it.
It's so like that's something I'm personally interested in. We just picked up our first national client the other day, right? So like we're scaling up that side, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience dealing with the larger corporate clients as opposed to the because I imagine you would have started with the plumbers and and all the service, and then now you're talking sort of Officeworks and a couple of big names around the place. So yeah, talk a little bit about what it's like managing larger retainers and the expectations there.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 different kind of businesses. You got like SMEs and those enterprise, and they're treated differently internally. Like our minimum campaign might be $1,000 a month, which some larger kind of plumbing companies and stuff might be doing. But then you've got your massive enterprise kind of accounts. Like I'll use Officeworks as an example, and there's a lot of them, but I can more freely talk about Officeworks because they're just super chill guys. So you've got like guys like Officeworks and Petstock and those brands, and they need different things. They need serious outreach strategies. They need serious technical strategies. They need documentation techniques, and they need to know everything that's happened and when it's happening, what that roadmap looks like, What does the talent matrix look like? Who's going to be their central AM? All these different things are what you need to get ready for with those big guys. They want contract reviews, KPIs, really quite in-depth stuff. So you as an agency need to be ready for that. If you're one or two people, like that is gonna kill you. Just that alone. The frequency of on-site visits, they want more of you in their office. And yeah, they really need you to sell SEO internally with them as well. So it's a lot of people management, not in your company, in their company now. So it's a different level, it's a different game. It's, we wouldn't approach enterprise the same way that we would approach SME. You want to change a H1 tag, you're now going to spend the next 5 months briefing up the cost benefit analysis on why their dev team needs to put these 2 other projects on hold in Jira to now work on the H1 tag. You need to forecast what that change will look like and how much of a material impact it'll have to the business. Then post that change, you need to evaluate, did it have that material change that you were talking about? If none of that sounds fun to you, don't touch enterprise. It is, you get the nice big names, but it really is the next level of SEO or digital agencies in general. So you've got to be prepared and ready and have a team equipped to deal with that. Because the other bad thing about enterprise, if you screw up one of them, they all hear about it. And your reputation with enterprise now sucks.
And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that at that level, referral type work. An office work
Yeah,
styles, a pet stop, and next thing.
correct. That's all referral level work. We get the odd one off the street, like that hears about us somewhere and looks at what we're doing, maybe through the awards we have or something like that. Like they might say the SEMrush Best Agency or APAC Award or something like that. Most of them, though, will come through a referral at another enterprise. It's very incestuous at that level.
Yep. They're just like that marketing director's like, oh, go talk to Harry. He's a good bloke and they do good work. Go have a chat to him. They're at some conference or something, and they're
Yeah, correct.
It's
So
just another. It's just a more formal extension of the old network. The old networks you were hitting the pavement with at the start. It's just
yeah, it really is. It really is. It's just a more exclusive level of it. Your Officeworks SEO lead will go chat to their Petstock SEO lead, or talk to the HelloFresh SEO lead, that'll talk to the Good Guys SEO lead. It just, is a path.
Yeah. So like I've asked this once before of someone else that had quite a large agency that deals with it enterprise level, and he had an interesting answer. Now, knowing what you know now about enterprise, and obviously the genie's out of the bottle, right? Like with the model that you have and the size and scale you have, it's not even a question of whether it's possible. But do you prefer to be the size and scale you are now, or would you have stayed smaller, either for longer or stayed smaller and done more and just done SMEs?
Look, it's something I think about a lot. What that size is and what that looks like. I mean, when we were small, we could be more agile and more nimble as an organization. Certainly, when I was a freelancer or when I was basically just doing my own affiliate stuff, that was probably the most agile. But having said that, and I think we grew at a good level. We didn't grow too crazy. It's been years and years of organic growth. So I wouldn't say that we grew too fast that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. We've come close, but we always fixed it. I would say, if anything, I would be bigger. The more people we have, the more economy of scale we have. If we looked at us at 5 versus us at 40, I reckon I can get links for half, maybe 60% of the cost as we did back then, which, as we all know in the SEO game, if I can get that and do the technical and the content, I'm going to outbeat anyone else more affordably. So I still look to that and think there is more economy of scale to be had. I don't know when that'll cap out. I would say around 100, you're going to hit the limit of that economy of scale, and having more people isn't going to do anything for you. And so at that level, I'll reevaluate and probably stay there. I have no desire to be, 1,000-person company. I just think that that's the opposite end of the spectrum of where I want to be. But I do want to be at the limit where I can maximize out the economy of scale, so that when I do my affiliate projects, which I still do, I can basically shoot everyone out of the water with a world class SEO agency and just dominate whatever space I want to.
On just having an internal team to be able to go like, I want to build this e-commerce platform out, or I want to build this, and like using
Yeah,
them internal assets as a resource is like, you can't beat that. And then whatever so we just bought an e-commerce store, like
yeah,
as in we and my wife and I as a project, and I look now and go, well, actually, like the cost of us marketing this is so much cheaper than our competitors that don't have this internal
mm,
capacity. We're just going to make it. And same with our affiliate sites. The amount of content we can produce from my personal affiliate sites, it just
yeah,
like spare
insane.
capacity of the writing team. It's
Correct.
like, right, throw these content strategy in there. Just get these written when you got spare time.
Exactly.
Makes a big difference. Now, the personal question I had for you was what do you feel like was the game? What was the game changing hire for you? Obviously, you've 40 staff and stuff. You've hired a whole bunch of different roles. Like what do you feel like was the game changer for you, either personally or for the agency itself? Which hire?
Ironically, when we hired an office manager, that was the game changer. I suck at following up invoices and doing all the finance stuff, and my God, my accountants hated me. I would come and they're like, "So you've obviously documented all your receipts and everything." I'm like, yeah, yeah, I got like a filter or something going on. And I'd be literally going through my emails live at the accounting meeting, trying to like pull up any receipts or invoices and approximations. So the game changer for me was getting someone that could handle all that stuff, handle shooting out invoices, handle billing discussions, handle following up, handle all those different things. That was a game changer for me because for the first time I could step away from being in the business and focus on the business. Every other hire before that has been, SEO focused and me working alongside them and training them. But that was the big one that was like, wow, this is a proper operation now. Like this is a fully, this is actually a legit thing.
That makes a lot of sense because that similar thing happened to us.
Yeah, yeah,
It's amazing how even just like we're doing a big push for the branding, and obviously these interviews and our social media side is we've hired specifically for that, and it's amazing how much time is consumed by all this back end admin that you probably didn't realize
yeah.
like that. It's actually frustrating for a client not to get an invoice on time. When they've got to account for it as well and balance books. And you're like, oh, actually, sorry, the invoice is late. I didn't get a chance to do it. You think they wouldn't care, but they're actually like, oh, wait a minute,
Yeah,
I
it's
need that for
annoying.
my books.
It's annoying.
Yeah,
Like we like to get our invoices ASAP because we like to pay our invoices ASAP. So if your invoice is 2 months behind, you're now at the back of the queue. So I
yes.
totally get that.
Now, so guys, questions. I'm surprised there hasn't been more questions. Harry's here. He's ready to answer any questions you may have. So get up there, pick his brains. But while we're waiting for those questions, so at some point, we've all had client relationships that just haven't really sort of panned out or haven't worked or something's happened. I think that's a defining moment in most people's agencies work, right? So, obviously, has that happened to you? I assume the answer is
Oh,
yes. And how
100%.
did you handle it? And what advice would you give to other people that are handling a toxic client or a relationship like that?
Fire them.
Fire them. Yep.
Very simple, very fast. You're gonna get crappy clients. You should have a screening process in place. Like I would say we reject probably 50% of the clients we get. Either they're not a good fit, they don't pass the no dickhead policy, and something or variation of that. But as soon as you realize a client's bad, they're sexist, they're racist, they're confrontational, like whatever the case may be, and they're causing problems, one of my mentors always says, one bad client is worth 10 good ones. And given that there's no shortage of good clients, get rid of them, find a good one. I don't care how much they're paying, what they're doing, find a new one. So I very much subscribe to that mentality, and we do have the occasional campaign where things, go wrong like that. And my advice would be to get rid of it quickly. Don't focus on trying to retain it. Don't let your ego get in the way. Trying to salvage the situation. See it, identify it, objectively decide whether this is a mistake on your side or if this is a mistake or not a mistake, or this is something where the situation has divulged to the point it is and get rid of that person like you would a staff member. If it's your fault, fix it, find out what went wrong in the process so it never happens again. If it's not, yeah, move on.
So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and I look at it as well. Like, there's only so many clients you can take on as an agency. So if
Correct.
you got one spot being filled up by someone A you don't want to work with, or B is just damaging the culture you're trying to build in the business.
Mm,
That's just taking up the spot of someone that may be a perfect fit that's looking for an agency like yours. So it's painful. Like I remember the first person client I had to really have a conversation. I was shitting myself. I was like, oh my god, like I can't really afford for them to leave either. But I also know it's for the best and it's important to do. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think that's the biggest thing is it's never as bad. Yeah, okay. Look, if office works left tomorrow, it'd be pretty damaging. But it's like also there's always other clients around, and it just makes capacity. It just frees up space for someone else, right? So Will has asked a question here. It's a two banger. So have you ever thought about automating payments through an e-commerce solution, as in client purchases your service through an e-commerce setup, so payments and automation can be grouped?
have I ever thought about automating payments through an e-commerce situation? Uh, as in, have your clients purchase your service through an e-commerce setup payment? We kind of do something like that. We have a system called Practice Ignition, but it's not an e-commerce setup. Like what we do, while everything's like block based or chunk of hours is how we price things. It's not the kind of thing that someone can just pre-purchase and go online and pay for, because then we have that whole client problem to begin with. If someone just buys hours and we don't get to screen them or anything, we could very well have a client that's not what we want. So it's as much for us as it is for them when they sign up and we go through that call and chat to them and everything. But it's a service. We're a service-based business, and when we're dealing with people, we have to be a little bit different than you would a product where you go online and buy something, because then we're just a commodity, and we don't want to be seen as a commodity. We want to be seen as a partner. So Practice Ignition allows us to do that automation, so that those payments can go through like that, and the client can check and see where everything's at, but not to the same level of something like an e-commerce storefront where people could just pick what campaign they want. As cool as that would be, we're just going to end up with a bunch of clients that we don't really want.
That's a great point. And the Will just mentioned. What about if you quoted the client, then put the purchase for an e-commerce? Well, that's what Practice Ignition basically
Yeah, that's what
does.
like Practice Ignition is, or Zero, or any of those services. If you set it up like an e-commerce store, you're going to have more tax problems than less, to be honest. But having like there's literal platforms built for that stuff. Zero allows you to do those kind of
Proposify, I
invoices.
think, does that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, Practice Ignition, all of those have some kind of automated system now so that you can send them a kickoff request or something like that. So you can do it all in one. Because with an e-commerce store, you can't really make them sign a kickoff request or anything like that. Whereas through PI or any of those systems, they can sign a kickoff request, they get a welcome pack, a welcome video, an onboarding thing, and it just makes that process a little bit smoother. But of course, you could build out your own PI if you really wanted to, but really you're trying to reinvent the wheel at that point.
Yeah, honestly, Practice Ignition. So the way it works for anyone that's interested is like you'll create a template for a proposal. Obviously there'll be particulars for that a specific client, and so like they'll fill it out. You'll fill it out. You'll send it to them, and they can actually accept the proposal through the proposal. Click on it, and it gets all their details and everything. So the end result on your end is a client that's signed up, retained. All their particulars are sorted, direct debits are all sorted, and so you can just start the work. It works like that, and there's several solutions that do that. Now, Will's also said here, I got my WooCommerce linked to Zero now, trying to make all payments through the store so I can automate the consolidation to Zero. Yeah, I think for a product that's like there's a lot of agencies that are productized. I know Ryan Stewart's been specifically talking about this recently, about how he's basically productized his SEO services into like clusters of services, and it could potentially work like that. But it's also about the space you want to play in, and if you're going for volume and you want to make profit through volume, then productizing your service is really the only way to do that. But if you're wanting to be a little bit more bespoke and serve up some service for a customer that doesn't, may not be one size fits all, then it's pretty hard to do it that way. Now, I've got another question for you, Harry, and I know you're a busy man, so I won't take
That's
up
all
too
good,
much
man.
more.
That's all good.
So, now knowing what you know now, and this is the generic question, but knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently with Studio Hawk? So that's the first question, right? So like, what would you have done differently at the start? But the second question, the second question in retrospect is, would you have done it the way you done it? So knowing what you know now, would you what would you have changed? But also, would you have done it the way you done it? Like all the way to this point, if that makes sense. So maybe start with the first question. So, what would you have done differently from the start to maybe accelerate your growth or put you in a different position now?
I don't even think it's about accelerating growth. I think what I would have done at the start is with those first few key hires, I would have done things differently in how, I guess, how everything was handled, about tempering them, about not doing that typical agency thing where everyone's giving off slices of the pie and pumping them up too much, because then you have to deal with egos later. And I've been very lucky in that part for most of it, that with those first few hires, that most of them have turned out even really well, given that I messed up so bad. In hindsight, like, I was so stupid. But you when you're at that stage, you're just trying to make the right decision at the right time, and maybe that was the right decision. Looking back, you never know. I mean, you can look at every kind of future Doctor Strange style and kind of map out how things might be different, but things might be worse. So I'd probably change that and just become more clear in the different positions and what everyone does, so that I don't have these problems with people wanting to do more or less or step away for periods of absences while they're in really important positions. So you don't have to deal with all that down the line, because that stuff can be incredibly annoying to deal with and fix if you don't set the right expectations, like you would with a client. Otherwise, what else would I change? Honestly, I think we've grown at a good rate. We've had amazing people, amazing clients. I think I would have learned that lesson that I shared earlier about firing clients sooner. I wish I had learned that sooner. But at the same time, maybe I needed that back then. But aside from that, man, there's no silver bullet thing that I would have done differently. The one thing I wouldn't change is the trust we have for our staff and the effort that goes into the work. That is one thing that has always rewarded us, even when it seems like it hasn't. That generosity and how we overpay and everything, how it seems like it might have bit us in the ass, it always turns out to be the right thing to do. So I wouldn't change that at all.
So that's an interesting point. I just want to wheel back to staff quickly, because it's the single, I think people don't appreciate with the agency space, it's the single biggest expense to most agencies is staff.
Big time.
And it's a bloody expensive part of running an agency, right? So like, what are some of the initiatives you do internally? Because obviously, when it's 4 or 5 of us, it's a lot easier to manage. You keep an eye on the ball pretty easily.
Yeah, exactly.
You lose
so much easier. Correct.
With the 40. What are some of the initiatives and things you do internally to keep that connection between everyone and yourself?
I mean, a lot. The biggest thing I think, again, coming back to roadmap and training, is showing where everyone's at. So day one, when you start at Studio Hawk, you get a little document. You get your brand book, so all the brand values, the passion, eager, hunger, and all the different stuff. You also get a little document, which is it's a trifold. It's your little roadmap, and it tells you what everyone's salary is in the company. So from junior to specialist to senior to SEO director to general to all those different levels, and it tells you what everyone makes, because everyone's standardized across the company. So that's a pretty confronting thing to see on your first day. You're going like, well, I'm here and they're here. How do I get there?
He's Harry at 35 grand a year.
Exactly.
Paying bills at the bottom.
Yeah. Legit, there's certainly a lot of people making a lot more money than I do within Studio Hook. But digressing, that's an important thing. We also have a massive cultural drive. So last Friday we went and did archery attack with everyone, and so we have a cultural manager that's in charge of making sure we're doing events and getting out and doing lunch and learns and what are we doing to engage. Another big thing we do is called Camp Hawk. Whereas if you're a specialist and above, we send you away for a few-day retreat with other specialists, some seniors, and either the general manager or myself to talk about. Because when you become a specialist, you're now in charge of managing other people. So we talk about what it means to manage other people and what you now need to do and what you're responsible for. So we talk about what that means, what are our values, and all those things. And it gets you really close with the heart of the organization. About the most meaningful thing that we have, the most important asset that anyone has. Forget Hawk Academy, forget Hawk Vision, it's people. So that's a massive part that has to be done, and we work tirelessly to make sure. And then we've got things like the Hawk Awards. There's so many different things, Jimmy, like that you have to do to keep everyone on that same drive and why.
So it's a little bit of a sidetrack. What are your hobbies? You look like you're a bit of a gamer. I see the
massive.
Yeah.
Like my games, never gotten sick of them. I have a lot less time to play them, but I still play, Dota when I can. I've been playing Breath of the Wild recently. I finally got that game, so massive shout out to that. But otherwise, hiking. And honestly, as corny as it sounds, SEO, I still do my own affiliate stuff on the weekend. I'm still pumping out all that stuff because I love it. I probably don't need it these days. I definitely don't need it these days, but it is fun and I like doing things that I find fun. So, while my mentors and boards all tell me to take a break on the weekends, I really don't want to. I want to learn more about this SEO thing. I've spent 10 years learning it, and I want to spend another 10 years crafting and mastering it.
And I suppose it's nice to know too that you could if one of your key specialists or whatever is like sick for a couple of weeks, you can hit the floor and actually pick up some work and actually do some work instead of just being like the queen.
Exactly right.
Take you out for public occasions,
I do like that. I do like being able to step in. The reality is though, man, I'm not allowed to go within a mile of any of the work going on for reasons like chugging along. The standard of work done is now a lot higher than what I used to do, and that's okay to admit, and that's we have to put aside our ego in it and realize that. But I am able to jump in and deal with complex SEO questions, practical things, or link acquisition stuff that I know really well. But short of that, man, there's so many other amazing specialists within the organization, like Joshua Poole or Charles Bell or Nick Ranger or Peter Mead or literally all these names, Taylor Merwin, that can jump in and fix these things better than I probably could, maybe excluding some really niche areas of link acquisition. So sometimes it's best to know.
You see Nick everywhere, eh? Like she's she's more visible than you, I think.
100%, mate.
But
everywhere.
She's a good advocate for the industry as well. She's so passionate about SEO as well, and it's good to have. It's good that I don't know whether that's encouraged internally. I feel like it would.
It certainly is. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're producing people that are really passionate about the industry. It just flows onto the rest of it and sets a standard high for the other enterprise level agencies out there, or even just any agency to go, well, like this is the standard. We're trying to set the standard here for the industry. Because at the end of the day, like this is I don't see people like yourself as competitors, or even just a local one man band down here. Our competitors, Pakistan, India, places that are doing not doing the work to standard. And just burning the industry and making... I hate having to spend the first half an hour of every time I speak to someone explaining how it's not a scam and how you can get good results by doing it.
Yes.
And, that shouldn't happen. But, so any people that are advocating for the industry is, is good in my books. Now,
100%.
I want to quickly talk about Hawk Academy because that's a good, fantastic lead-in into it. So talk a little bit about Hawk Academy. why he started it, bit of the, how long it's taken to do, and
Yeah.
some of the pros and cons of running a course like the size that is.
Yeah, so Hawk Academy is like an online and soon also in person different kind of workshops and things that we
Cool.
do as part of learning SEO. It is an amalgamation of years and years of different lessons, learnings, and things that we've done. Now, why we created it was because while there's no shortage of SEO courses, there's nothing really practical. Like a lot of it's very theoretical or comes from a different mindset than actual people doing SEO. It might be someone that's, done some SEO once and now they're doing a course out of it, or people trying to make money out of courses. So we started recording it probably a year and a half ago, and the idea was to mix three different avenues of what created SEO, or what I believed was learning SEO, and that's a theoretical understanding, a practical understanding, and then having a live demonstration that you can look at it for. So we had that theoretical of what's a title tag, then we had a practical of how do you implement title tags, and then we followed that up with an affiliate that we had of the gains we've seen through using title tags and why that's all important. And then we interviewed different industry experts in each different category to kind of share that. The other thing I wanted to do was people don't need to learn every little bit about SEO. So I'm trying to make business owners
Respect
and
to
marketing
that.
managers learn this amazing, incredible thing. They probably don't need to know what a hreflang is unless they've got an international website. Your Reese Plumbing probably don't need to know about anything to do with e-commerce SEO, so they can dismiss that. So we built this dashboard that puts you on like a shortcut through SEO only relevant to what you need to know in your current position. So you can go through 22 hours worth of SEO, just videos alone, not including the quizzes or worksheets or anything, or you can go through a 4 or 5 hour streamlined version of what you need to know tailored to what industries you're in. And so that was kind of the reason behind it. We realized two things. Number one, most people didn't understand SEO if it smacked them across the face. So they would talk to us about like, how many thousands of backlinks are you acquiring? We're like, what? And so we'd have to educate the market. We could just sit there and go, oh, these people don't know anything. Or we could step further and actually fix the problem. So we provide that to all our clients as part of learning what goes on behind the scenes in a campaign. We also realized that talent gap that we mentioned, and now we do work with a lot of different universities within Australia doing talks and lectures, and even getting credit by running them through the Hawk Academy. So that's why it was built and developed. Now, when people say you must be making a lot of money off that kind of stuff, no,
Maybe if you were
absolutely
charging
not.
10 times as much as you are now, maybe, but yeah,
If you looked at my hourly and the hourlies of everyone involved and the customized systems and everything that we've built to be able to do all that, we're easily 60, 70 grand in a hole. Much more probably. I don't even want to think about it. We've probably made 100 grand, maybe 60, 70. Whatever math you do on it, we haven't made any money off it, right? We haven't made a tangible amount of money that we would look at this as a successful venture. If this was, compared to studio scale, we would look at this and be like, this is a poor effort. But what makes it successful and why we've had thousands of students through it now is what it does for people. They can learn about it, do SEO, and it's good for the broader industry, which in turn helps us. So that's why you got to start looking to those kind of pieces if you want to keep growing.
I honestly think that's notwithstanding. I think most courses, because I get asked by businesses all the time, like, well, where would you learn SEO? And until Hawk Academy came along, I was like, oh, well, most of the courses are geared towards someone that maybe has a little bit of experience with SEO first or
Yeah.
wants to get into the industry, not taking an everyday punter plumber and going, well, actually, you having a little bit of education in the space will save you getting scammed out of 10, 20, $30,000 from someone that's just throwing, oh, you need a heap of backlinks and they'll fix all your problems. It's like, wait a minute. Well, I did this course and I only read an hour, but he's saying content's important. Oh yeah, well, that's what I think. That's where when I tell people about Hawk Academy and why I recommend it so much, that is the reason. I never really thought about it, but
Mm.
there's so many courses out there, good courses too. Admittedly, if you're an SEO,
Yeah.
there's a lot of knowledge out there, but they're not really targeted to the every person. that
Yeah.
maybe doesn't want to, because you're right. Like this is the biggest thing I tell people when they're either starting with me or just asking me my advice. I'm like, you don't need to know everything about SEO. Yeah, it's cool to be able to go into a room of your contemporaries and go, oh yeah, entity, talk about entities or JavaScript rendering and stuff like that. Yeah, it's cool. But is someone going to pay you for that?
Yeah.
Very few circumstances. And B, will it help you get better results? In the very specific circumstances, will, but otherwise, a Joe Plumber, which is going to be your bread and butter, good content, bit of link building, that's that will get them the results. So like it's
Yeah.
I think sometimes there's a lot of that like mental masturbation. You just want to you get in a
Pig
room,
time.
you
That's a
just
good word. Yeah.
it is. It's honestly, you get in a room of like 3 or 4 SEOs, and next thing you're starting to talk about stuff that doesn't even exist yet, because everyone's trying to work out ways
One up
to,
each other. Yeah.
yeah. Whereas I go into rooms and go, look, dude, I do whatever works. And if that is JavaScript rendering because I have a big e-com site or something, it's like, okay, well that's what we're doing. But if it's
Yeah. Exactly.
if it's redoing their website, putting a bit of good content on there, link building, and a bit of non-commercial article like blog content, that will get them as good a result. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that stops a lot of people starting SEO is they think they have to be the expert at it at the very start. Whereas if you just did Harry's course, learnt the fundamentals, and then really dived into bits that really interest you, then you would be at a level where you could go, okay, I could take a couple of plumbers on, or a thing on, because you can get them results, because and then you just learn the stuff as you go as you require it. That's all I've done is need to learn about entities, and it's okay, well go and
Yeah.
learn.
You
Go
start
ColourTube.
diving in. You start learning what you need to learn when you need to learn it. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's analysis paralysis is stopping a lot of people doing, just getting on with it, talking to clients, acquiring clients. They sit
Yeah.
there and go, oh, I don't want to talk to a client yet because I don't know everything there is to know about SEO. It's like, well, actually, once you get a client and then know the fundamentals, get a client, then be honest with them, say, look, I'm still learning SEO. I'm going to give you a discount because I'm learning, but I'm going to do everything I can to get you results.
Yeah.
I think a client would appreciate that more than you knowing how JavaScript rendering works and not applying to them.
Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Awesome, man. Like, I think, look, I think there's a lot of people in this industry, especially in Australia. That DMA was an eye opener for me, because before that, I was just doing internal client work, internal affiliate work. So I'd never really met anyone else in the industry, to be honest. I went there and went, actually, there's a lot of cool people in this space.
There is this awesome people.
There is, and almost every single person I've had in interviews is happy to help and happy to have a chat and just happy to answer questions and just help people along, because you said it at the start. There's more clients than there is people doing the work, by a long shot. And it's if anything, it helps you by teaching the people that want to learn SEO and helping them and them getting better at it. It opens up the talent pool for you. Next thing you're hiring them, they become part of the team. So. Where can people find you, Harry? Like if they want to reach out and touch base, where can people find you?
Best way is hello@hawkacademy.co. I'm always active and checking that stuff. But yeah, that's the best way to reach me if you want to chat about something or have a burning question. But yeah, that's the way. Otherwise, I'm on Twitter at Harry Sanders SEO, as well as Facebook at Harry Sanders SEO.
Excellent. Yeah, guys, reach out. I obviously, a lot of questions, people think of things after the fact, but honestly, he's an absolute gentleman. I've always found it interesting to hear his insights, because obviously, it's always good to, while I don't reference myself against others, it's always good to see people's paths through.
Yeah, 100%.
Through that, and I'm sure you would have done the same thing as you were sort of growing. And thank you for taking the time to chat to me and the people that were in the chat. What's on the horizon? Let's talk a little bit about the future of Hawk, Studio Hawk.
What's on the horizon, man? Looking to grow and build out what we're doing with, culture, build out what we're doing with Hawk Vision. The SEO work is really, really strong at this point. There's always fine tuning that could be done, but I think the future is starting to find out what the next cool thing is before everyone else is doing it. And that's starting to look at trend forecasting and all the cool stuff that I've always wanted to do, but didn't have the cash or people to do.
Yes, yes. You're sort of in the lab now. You can sit there and because entities like with I've been watching a lot of CaliCube
Yeah,
lately,
yeah,
and learning about entities, and that stuff really interests me. I really dig it. But I'm
yeah.
also like, well, actually, I'm going to get back to work and do some
Yeah,
generate some
exactly.
income.
Yeah,
So there's only so much time you can spend, but
that's it.
it's there's so much stuff coming on the horizon. It's guys, this is the thing I would say if anyone's watching that's looking for a career to get into. There is so much coming on the horizon with SEO and just marketing in general,
Yeah,
digital marketing.
it's huge,
It's a
huge
huge space.
industry. The pay, to give you perspective, you don't need to go to uni. Your first year, you'll probably be on 50 something. Your second year, probably 60 something. Your second, third year, talking 80, 90s. Like, it's freaking insane, guys. Like, if you're looking, not that I want anyone to be motivated by money because it's a terrible motivator, but it just shows how in demand the industry is and what people are willing to pay for good specialized talent.
It's so true, and like once you get that skill set and that practical skill set, you'll basically have people throwing job offers at you too. Like I think
Correct.
that's what people.
Literally.
Yeah, if someone walked in this store at the moment and said, "Oh, I come from studio, I've moved to the west. I
Yeah.
can't." I'd be like, "Dude, come on in. We'll find somewhere
100%.
for you."
Yeah.
And that's what I think people forget is like there's different tiers of what we do too. I think, and that's where you were saying about specialists and juniors and stuff. There's the middle to top tier of the SEO space. There's a very, very small portion of SEOs
Very
that,
few. Yeah.
yeah, and
You
they're all known. They're all known
exactly.
to each other.
Exactly. If
And
you get yourself there, you can expect gift hampers and us inviting you in for interviews. So
that's it. And vice versa, same deal. So if anyone's wanting to come to the West, there's plenty of space in our
that's
office.
it. That's it. That's
but
it.
but awesome, dude. Thanks so much for your time, Harry. And
Thank you, man.
yeah, it was nice to talk about not just talk about H1s and time
Yeah,
frames,
yeah.
to talk about a bit about the nuts and bolts of running an
I
agency.
love it, man.
So
Well,
guys,
thanks.
tune in next. Oh yeah, sorry, just
Thanks
quick.
for having me on. That's all I was saying. Thank you.
No worries. Guys, tune in next week. I believe next week we got Dan on next week. We got Dan Nickers talking about email marketing specifically.
Awesome.
So I think there's got to be a lot of people that are going to be tuning in for that because it's a bit of the Wild West doing good email marketing. So
Ain't it?
yeah. All right. Thanks so
Awesome.
much, guys, and see you all next week.